Hello, welcome to the Teapot Reads. My name's Sam. I'm the Teapot. This is what I'm currently reading, and I'm so happy to see you today. Hello and welcome. Welcome if this is your first time visiting the channel, and welcome back if you're returning. It's so nice to see you again. I love doing seasonal recommends videos. It's something I have been doing all year, and this is actually wrapping it up. I am planning to do some sort of seasonal recommends video, but it is going to be different in the new year, so that's something to look forward to. Without further ado, let's get into it. These are books that remind me of winter or give off winter vibes and are just recommendations for this season. And this is my favorite season. I have not read every single book that I have here, but I do want to talk about them all because they give those vibes, and sometimes it's really just the cover aesthetic and the description on the back. So I will be showing you the book, I'll be telling you what it is about, and I'll be telling you why it makes me think of winter. I will also be mentioning if it is going to be showing up in my winter vlog type video that I will be posting a little later in the season once I'm actually done reading all of the books that are on that list. So if you want to see full thoughts on the books as I read them, definitely check that out. I am not including any classics books on this list because I have a lot of classics books that make me think of winter. So very many that I feel like it could be its own video. First of all, we have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is a very famous book. You have probably seen this book. Chances are you probably own this book and have read this book. Wildly popular and for very good reason. I am one of the few people you will ever meet that prefers the original trilogy to the Six of Crows duology. I love these. I loved the ending. I'll say that, like, of the trilogy, I loved the ending. That was perfect. But this book in particular gives me such winter vibes because I very much remember sitting on the couch reading this with a blanket draped around my shoulders, all cuddled up while snow fell outside while I was on my winter break. And I remember just wishing I was a Grisha and went to the little palace and yeah, all of these things. Shadow and Bone is of course about Alina Starkov, who finds out she is a Grisha, which is a member of, it's sort of magic, sort of like science, but it's magic. They have magical powers. They're different types, but she finds out she's a Grisha and therefore becomes kind of enrolled in the Grisha lifestyle and army, but not just any Grisha. She's the sun summoner, and they need a sun summoner in order to fight the sort of demons that are at their door, basically. And this book is really about her coming into her powers and claiming her role, and maybe even breaking that role a little bit. It's a very, very typical YA novel and a very, very typical first in series, especially for the time when it came out. I want to say this came out in like 2012. I was dead on. It came out in 2012, so it came out the same year as Cinder, Divergent, a lot of other really classic YA texts, and it very much is a classic YA text. So if that's not something you're interested in or would enjoy, I really don't recommend picking it up because it really does fall into a lot of things that are absolutely tropes now, but weren't necessarily when it came out. But I do love Shadow and Bone. It is something that I adore. I am a little afraid to go back and reread it. I worry I would not love it as much as I did, but yeah, Shadow and Bone. And the TV show, again, I'm not the biggest fan. I think the casting is spot on, but I have my problems with it. But I know a lot of people like it, and I do think that it does have that wintry feel, especially the sort of late winter, like February vibes, that kind of cold. So I would recommend that if you're not up for the book. Then we have The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and it is going to be showing up in my winter reading vlog, so you can definitely take a peek at that when it posts. I don't think it'll be up when this goes up. No, it won't. It won't. That would be incredible if it was. But this will be in that video, so definitely if you want to know more of my thoughts. But this is one of my favorite books of all time. I have read The Night Circus. I think this is far superior. This is about Zachary Ezra Rollins, who basically finds his way into a sort of decrepit, old, wonderful, magical library that is set on the shores of the Starless Sea. He only gets there with the help of Mirabelle, who is a girl who can make doors, and with the help of Dorian, who maybe worked for a secret society that was acting against the library. This book is all about being that grown-up kid who is still looking for Narnia in their closets and wardrobes. I vibe with Zachary so much. He's one of my favorite characters. Like I said, this is one of my favorite books. I cannot love it enough. It gives me winter vibes in part because of when I originally read it, which was in November, which is when it came out. I have read it once since then, and I didn't reread it last year, but I am rereading it this year. And also because it takes place during the winter, there's this really nice moment where Mirabelle calls, she calls the snow poetry. I know this book so well, it's sort of imprinted on my heart. Absolutely love it. But there is this moment where Maribel calls the snow poetry, which is just very perfect and I think really encapsulates the vibe of this entire book. I also think it's very wintry because it is a book that you want to cozy up with on a long night and you want to read late into the night, maybe with just some candles lighting up the pages because you're just so enamored with it and there's just so much magic pouring off of them. This is a good read. This is a good book to read on a Christmas Eve, in my opinion. Sophie and the Bone Song by Adrienne Tooley is a book I have not read yet, but have very high expectations for. So when I read it, I really hope it does not disappoint me. I think, first of all, the reason it reminds me of winter is because of what she is wearing and the whole vibe. And you've got this sort of wintry landscape on the back. Let me read you the description. In a world where magic has run rampant, there are strict laws protecting music from being tampered with. It is the last true art, untouched by magic and still beautiful. Sophie is the daughter of the king's personal music, the most powerful musician who spreads songs of the king's triumphs and achievements. Sophie has been raised to replace him, but when the time comes for him to choose his official apprentice, Sophie's hopes are dashed as he elects to take on Lara, the daughter of a powerful lord who has never played music before. When her father dies the very next day, Lara becomes the king's music and is suddenly able to play Sophie's father's famous bone flute as beautifully as if she'd been playing all her life. Sophie is dedicated to exposing Lara as a fraud who is using forbidden magic to perform, but the more she learns about Lara, the more she starts to doubt everything she thought she knew about family, music, and the girl she thought was her enemy. Sophie will have to do everything in her power to unlock the reasons her father made the choice he did and to possibly win back the right to her music, all while trying not to fall for the girl who stole her future. So we love it. We're absolutely here for it. 100%. I mean, honestly, a lot of the reasons this seems like a very wintry book is because of the cover and the aesthetic. There's not much else to really pinpoint it in that direction. However, I do think there's something really, really wintry about music-based stories. I think that there's also really a place in springtime for music-based stories, but winter and spring are just these sort of times of the year where the air feels clearer, feels lighter, feels like noise can travel a little more freely and a little more crisply. And yeah, a music-based story with the winter vibes, I really got to put it in this season. Another book I haven't read yet, but I am hoping to read. It's not probably going to be this year, it's probably going to be next year, but hopefully early in the new year because I would like to read it in the wintertime. This is Hidden Sea, A Tale of the Once and Future Nutcracker by Gregory Maguire. I've never read a Gregory Maguire and this is the only one I own. I think it is very obvious why I was like, yeah, this is a winter book. It's a Nutcracker retelling, and underneath it we have this incredibly terrifying picture of a Nutcracker. I actually recently read The Nutcracker, the original by E.F. Hoffman, and I had mixed thoughts. It was good. It was really interesting to kind of see the origin of it, but I would love to see Gregory Maguire's take on it. Even though I haven't read any of his books, I have this strong sense that I would like his books and like his writing. It very much just fits into the niche of what I want to read. Yeah, he also has another book that also super vibes with me that makes me think of winter, but I don't own it. I think it's called A Wild Winter Swan. I'll post a picture of it, but let me read you the description. Gregory Maguire returns with the inventive novel inspired by a timeless holiday legend, intertwining the story of the famous Nutcracker with the life of the mysterious toy maker named Drosselmeyer who carved him. Having brought his legions of devoted readers to Oz and Wicked and to Wonderland and After Alice, Maguire now takes us to the realms of the Brothers Grimm and E.T.A. Hoffman. Why did I call him R.F. Hoffman? I meant E.T.A. Hoffman. Okay. That's who I fucking meant. The enchanted black forest of Bavaria and the salons of Munich. Hidden Sea imagines the backstory of the Nutcracker, revealing how this entrancing creature came to be carved and how he guided an ailing girl named Clara through a dreamy paradise on Christmas Eve. At the heart of Hoffman's mysterious tale hovers godfather Drosselmeyer, the ominous, canny, one-eyed toy maker made immortal by Petipa and Tchaikovsky's fairy tale ballet. Petipa? I'm probably saying it wrong. Who presents the once and future Nutcracker to Clara, his goddaughter. But Hidden Sea is not just a retelling of a classic story. Maguire discovers in the flowering of German Romanticism ties to Hellenic mystery cults a fascination with death and the afterlife, and ponders a profound question. How can a person who is abused by life, shortchanged and challenged, nevertheless access secrets that benefit the disadvantaged and powerless? Ultimately, Hidden Sea offers a message of hope. If the compromised godfather Drosselmeyer can bring the enchanted Nutcracker to a young girl in distress on a dark winter evening, perhaps everyone, however lonely or marginalized, has something precious to share. So it does feel like a bit more of a heavy book, but I'm kind of excited for that. And I really am excited for the sort of take on the Nutcracker. And yeah, Nutcracker screams wintertime because it screams holiday time. even if you aren't familiar with the ballet, I think you're just in general familiar with the story of the Nutcracker. And am I wrong, or was there a Barbie movie about it? I feel like that was my first experience with that story, and I fell in love at that point. A book I have read is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I have such mixed feelings about this book personally, but I am going to be rereading it, and it will be in my winter reading vlog, so check that out when it's posted. Like I said, this is absolutely a winter book. Regardless of what my thoughts were the first time reading it, it absolutely ekes winter and snow and coldness, but also the sort of warmth. And I think this cover does a really good job, especially here, of showing the warm side of the winter season. This is about a girl named Vanya. Oh no, Vasilisa. Maybe they call her Vanya. I don't. It's been a while. I read it as an arc originally, so it really has been a long time. Vasilisa can basically see the spirits and the fairies, and this sort of puts her in touch with that sort of aspect of her world, and she's also sort of destined to be with the Winter King, I think he's called, and he's sort of been just sort of waiting for her. Again, the cover does a pretty good job of getting you in that like wintry vibe, but it takes place in a snowy area. It takes place in a snowy part of Russia, and even book 2, which takes place more in a city, it still is just like sort of this constant winter aesthetic. I don't know if it's a regional thing. I don't know if it is a historical thing, because it does sort of have that historical fantasy aspect to it, but just the coldness really leaches off the page and fills your dreams of snow. Another book I haven't read, and I keep telling myself this is like next on the TBR, and it hasn't been next yet, but that is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. And this is the gorgeous fairy lit edition, but I would like to just show off the naked design, because the art is actually done by the author, and I think it is just absolutely stunning. So I wanted to just showcase that. And there is actually art in there that the author also did. Before I read you the description on the inside flap, this gives me the dark of winter type vibes, like January, February type of winter, not necessarily the holiday cheerful aspects. This is the world is slushy and darker earlier and a little scarier because of it, but also wicked and brutal and sort of beautiful in that wicked and brutalness. Once upon a time, there was a horrible girl, Vanya Schmidt, Vanya Schmidt knows that no gift is freely given, not even a mother's love. The adopted goddaughter of death and fortune, Vanya has long made her way in the world as the dutiful servant of Princess Giselle, until a year ago when her otherworldly mothers demanded repayment for their care, and Vanya decided to steal her future back by stealing Giselle's life. With the help of an enchanted string of pearls, Vanya transformed into her former mistress and took her place, leaving the real Giselle a penniless nobody. Now Vanya leads a lonely but lucrative double life as princess and jewel thief, charming the nobility while emptying their coffers to fund her great escape. Until one heist away from her freedom, Vanya crosses the wrong god and is cursed to turn into jewels, stone by stone. With a feral guardian half-god, Giselle's sinister fiancé, and an overeager junior detective on her tail, Vanya has just 2 weeks to pull off her biggest grift yet. Or she risks losing more than her freedom. She could lose her life. In this delightfully irreverent retelling of the Goose Girl, Margaret Owen crafts an unputdownable tale about stolen lives, thorny truths, and the wicked girls at the heart of both. Yeah. Another one I haven't read. Are the rest of these? No, there's one more after this that I haven't read, but definitely gives off those vibes. This is Shadow in the Glass by J.J.A. Harwood. Yeah, Harwood. I think it is actually a Cinderella retelling. And before we go further, for whatever reason, I always associate Cinderella with the wintertime, even though I don't think it's a wintertime story in the least. There's just something about that very particular brand of magic that makes me go, ah, yes, winter, snow, cold, ice. So Shadow in the Glass. Once upon a time, that is so funny that it starts that way. Once upon a time, Ella wished for more than a life as a lowly maid. Now forced to work hard under the unforgiving, lecherous gaze of the man she once called stepfather, Ella's only refuge is in the books she reads by candlelight, secreted away in the library she isn't permitted to enter. One night among her beloved books of far-off lands, Ella's wishes are answered. At the stroke of midnight, a fairy godmother makes her an offer that will change her life. 7 wishes, hers to make as she pleases. Joy, opportunity, comfort, and even love are within her reach once more, but each wish comes at a price, and Ella must decide whether it's one she's willing to pay. I think this one gives a lot of those like cozy vibes as well, in part because it mentions library in the description, and I always feel like libraries and reading at night is a very wintertime activity because there's so much night this time of the year, at least in the northern hemisphere, and again, Cinderella is just so wintry for me. I think there's absolutely something in the title as well. Shadow obviously calling on darkness and the sort of deep nights and the inky blackness, and glass kind of calling on the reflections that you can find in ice. This just gives very fairy tale vibes, and I think fairy tales, I mean, they can be told and should be told year round, but this is a sort of like cold fairy tale. I hope that made sense. It makes sense in my head. We have For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I have not read this book, but this will be in my winter reading vlog. So again, check that out after it's posted if you want to see my full thoughts. For the Wolf is the first in a duology, and I have just heard in general that it has winter vibes. So I mean, partly I'm going off that. Again, the cover absolutely has it. I do believe it is sort of a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. Let me redo the description real quick. As the only second daughter born in centuries, Red has one purpose: to be sacrificed to the wolf in the Wilderwood in the hope he'll return the world's captured gods. Red is almost relieved to go. Plagued by dangerous power she can't control, she knows that at least in the Wilderwood she can't hurt those she loves again. But the legends lie. The wolf is a man, not a monster. Her magic is a calling, not a curse, and if she doesn't learn how to use it, the monsters the gods have become will swallow the Wilderworld. The Wilderwood and her world whole. Woods are very wintry to me. I think there's a difference between calling a place a woods and a forest, and I think the woods just conjure up tall trees, spindly branches, and covered in snow, soft falling snow that quiets the world around you, and you can't hear the monsters coming through the shadows. And I think in general that is just the aesthetic of this book that it absolutely gives off. So yeah, that's why I think it's a good winter book. I do think it's more of a romance, but I do also feel like it has like gothic-ish elements to it. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Yes, I have read this book twice now actually, and this is my book of the month edition because I really wanted a hardcover. I just feel like I have to acknowledge that. The Secret History is dark academia to the core. It absolutely is the beginning of that genre and that trend, even without realizing it was creating a trend, I think, and it's a beautiful thing. It is a horrifying book, but it is beautiful. This is so much closer to mystery thriller than anything else on this list, and pretty much anything else that I tend to read, but it definitely goes there. And it is winter. There is a very like crystal clear in my memory set of scenes that happen in the winter, and fairly early in the book actually, and our protagonist, he is just like suffering in the cold, and it is one of my favorite sequences of events in any book ever, I think, because it's just like stamped in my brain. And whenever I pick this book up, I think that. I also think the dark academia vibes, while autumn is definitely sort of the calling for that, I think winter is absolutely the time to really relish in it. It is the time when you are stuck inside, so you have to study and read and do all of these sort of mental pleasures, and it's just stuffy in all the right ways. Absolutely love this book. Absolutely think this veers more towards winter than autumn, in my opinion. Even though it is a school book and school and autumn are tied irrevocably, I do think that winter is where it belongs, in part because it is so cold and dark. And then two children's books. These are both favorites of mine. We have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. You know what this is about. It's a classic, and it is a classic winter story. I don't have to explain it. This is perfect. If you've never read the book, you've just seen the film. The book is actually not that far off from the film. I personally think the film's a little better, but I have such a fun time reading this. And yeah, it will be in my winter reading vlog as well. And this is really short. Even if you're not a quick reader, it probably won't take you more than a day. It's really magnificent. I have not read the entire Chronicles of Narnia, but I strongly and always recommend this one. And then, because I feel like you can't have Lewis without Pullman, we have Philip Pullman's Northern Lights, or The Golden Compass in America. I just have this special edition that I think is really pretty. Polar bears. It is wintry all the way through, mostly because of the polar bears. How can you not? And it is a journey to the north where there is snow everywhere. And I also feel like it is sort of that winter of like the last sort of winter of childhood. I feel like we all have that one holiday season where after that we have one that we know is like, that was the last one. That was like my childhood holiday, my childhood winter. And then somehow next time it rolls around, things are very different. And I think this is sort of encapsulating that very particular time of life as well. So that's it. Those are my books for winter. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this content and you want to see more like it, definitely consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And if you are already subscribed and have been watching, thank you so much. It means the world to me. I hope you're all having a great day. If you are somewhere cold, I hope you're staying warm. If you're somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. And most of all, I hope you're reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye!